A sad tale's best for winter, saith the epigraph. And it was by the winter's heart that I heard the following ghost story, rendered interesting from the air of reverential belief with which it was delivered from the withered lips of an old woman. Masses for the souls of the dead are among the most cherished items of the Roman Catholic peasant's belief, and it was to prove how sacred a duty the Mass for the soul of the faithful departed is considered before the eternal judgment seat that the tale was told, which I shall endeavour to repeat as nearly as my memory will serve, in the words of the original narrator. It was a certain eve of St. John, as well as I can remember, that the old dame gave as the date of the supernatural occurrence. Win Mary O'Malley, a friend of my mother's, God rest her soul, and it was herself told me the story. Mary O'Malley was in the chapel, here in Vespers and the eve of St. John. Win, you see, whether it was that she was the browsy or tired after the day's work, for she was all day tedding the new cut grass, for 'twas haymaking season, or whether it was ordered, and that it was all for the glory of God, and the repose of a troubled soul, or how it was, it doesn't become me to say, but howsomever, Mary fell asleep in the chapel, and sound enough she slept, for never a wink she wakened until every individual crater was gone, and the chapel doors was looked. Well, you may be sure it's poor Mary O'Malley was freakened, and trimbled till she thought she'd had died on the spot, and sure, no wonder, considering she was locked up in a chapel all alone, and in the dark, and no one near her. Well, after a time she recovered herself a little, and she thought there was no use in life in setting up a fililue, striving to make herself heard, for she knew well no living soul was within call, and so, on a little consideration, when she got over the first fright at being left alone that away, good thoughts came into her head to comfort her, and sure she knew she was in God's own house, and that no bad spirit dare come there. So, with that, she knelt down again and repeated her credos and Pater and Aves over and over until she felt quite sure in the protection of heaven, and then wrapping herself up in her cloak, she thought she might lie down and strive to sleep till morning. Win, may the Lord keep us, piously ejaculated the old woman, crossing herself most devoutly. All of a sudden a light shined into the chapel as bright as the light of day, and with that poor Mary, looking up, seen it shining out of the door of the vestry, and immediately out walked out of the vestry a priest dressed in black vestments, and going slowly up to the altar, he said, "Is there anyone here to answer this mass?" Well, my poor dear Mary thought the life it'd lave her, for she dreaded the priest was not of this world, and she couldn't say a word. And when the priest asked 3 times was there no one there to answer the mass, and got no answer, he walked back again into the vestry, and in a minute all was dark again. But before he went, Mary thought he looked towards her, and she said she'd never forget the melancholy light of his eyes, and the look he gave her quite pitiful like, and she said she never heard before nor since such a wonderful deep voice. Well, sir, the poor crater, the minute the spirit was gone, for it was a spirit, God be good to us, that minute the crater fainted dead away, and so I suppose it was with her from one faint into another, for she knew nothing more about anything until she recovered, and came to herself in her mother's cabin, after being brought home from the chapel next morning, when it was open for mass, and she was found there. I hear, thin. It was as good as a week before she could leave her bed. She was so overcome by the mortal terror she was in that blessed night, blessed as it was, being the eve of a holy saint, and more by token, the means of giving repose to a troubled spirit. For you see, when Mary told what she had seen and heard to her clergy, his reverence, under God, was enlightened to see the meaning of it all. And the meaning was this, that he understood from hearing of the priest appearing in black vestments, that it was for to say mass for the dead that he came there. And so he supposed that the priest during his lifetime had forgot to say a mass for the dead that he was bound to say, and that his poor soul couldn't have rest until that mass was said, and that he must walk until the duty was done. So Mary's clergy said to her that as the knowledge of this was made, through her, and as his reverence said she was chosen, he asked her would she go and keep another vigil in the chapel, as his reverence said, and true for him, for the repose of his soul. So Mary, being a stout girl and always good, and relying on doing what she thought was her duty in the eyes of God, said she'd watch another night, but hoped she wouldn't be asked to stay long in the chapel alone. So the priest told her 'twould do if she was there a little store 12 o'clock at night, for you know, sir, that people never appears until after 12, and from that till cock-crow. And so accordingly Mary went on the night of the vigil, and before 12 down she knelt in the chapel, and began a counting of her beads, and the crater, she thought every minute was an hour until she'd be released. Well, she wasn't kept long, for soon the dazzling light burst from out of the vestry door, and the same priest came out that appeared afore, and in the same melancholy voice he asked, when he mounted the altar, "Is there anyone here to answer this mass?" Well, poor Mary struve to speak, but the crater thought her heart was up in her mouth, and not a word could she say, and again the word was axed from the altar, and still she couldn't say a word, but the sweat ran down her forehead as thick as the winter's rain, and immediately she felt relieved, and the impression was taken of her heart like. And so, whine for the third and last time the appearance said, "Is there no one here to answer this mass?" Poor Mary muttered out yes as well as she could. Oh, often I heard her say the beautiful sight it was to see the lovely smile upon the face of the spirit as he turned round and looked kindly upon her, saying these remarkable words. "It's 20 years," says he. "I have been asking that question, and no one answered till this blessed night, and a blessing be on her that answered, and now my business on earth is finished." And with that he vanished before you could shut your eyes. So never say, sir, it's no good praying for the dead, for you see that even the soul of a priest couldn't have pace for forgetting so holy a thing as a mass for the soul of the faithful departed.